Here at Cork Fizz, I'm all about helping you discover new wines. Yes, I know it's easy to just continue to buy your favorite bottle, but I have to tell you, you're missing out. Did you know there are over 10,000 different grape varieties and over 65,000 wine producers worldwide? Trust me, there are so many more delicious wines out there for you to try, and your next favorite bottle is just waiting for you to find it. In an effort to encourage you to try something new, I'm bringing back my free summer wine challenge. That's right, it's free. Head to the link in my show notes, corkandfizz.com/summer wine challenge to sign up. This challenge will last 6 weeks, and during that time, all I ask is that you try 6 new wines and fill out a simple tasting form on my website for each one. I'll also be sending you exclusive weekly emails with recommendations for regions and wines to explore. Plus, you'll have access to not one, but 2 free live virtual tastings where you get to learn about and taste wine with me and fellow challenge goers. If you successfully taste and record 6 new wines in the 6 weeks, you'll receive a class pass, which gives you access to a virtual tasting party of your choosing with my tasting club, the Cork Crew. Plus, everyone who completes the challenge will be entered to win a free 1-year membership to the Cork Crew, with one lucky winner being chosen at the end of July. We start June 19th, but you can sign up anytime between now and before the challenge ends on July 30th. Head to the link in my show notes to join me. Oh, and did I mention it's free? Interested in learning about wine, but not sure where to start? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Cork Fizz Guide to Wine podcast. I'm your host, Haley Bowman, and I'm so glad you're here. I'm a wine enthusiast turned wine educator and founder of the Seattle-based wine tasting business, Cork Fizz. It is my goal to build your confidence in wine by making it approachable and lots of fun. You can expect to learn everything from how to describe your favorite wine to what to pair with dinner tonight, and so much more. Whether you're a casual wine sipper or a total cork dork like myself, this podcast is for you. So grab yourself a glass and let's dive in. You may or may not know this, but when I first started getting into wine, I started a wine tasting club with friends. And as part of that club, we hosted a wine tasting party at home. Were we experts at this? Heck no. Did we spend way too long setting it up and agonizing over whether we'd forgotten anything? You bet we did. Did we host it on a Monday, drink too much, and end up incredibly hungover for work on Tuesday? Yep, sure did. All that to say, we made some mistakes, but we sure had a lot of fun. Now, you don't have to start a club to host a wine tasting party at home. You can just host a single party and stop there. Though, let's be real. I have a feeling you'll kind of be hooked from the very first one, but you don't have to plan it like that. Just plan to host your own wine tasting party at home. And let me help you avoid the mistakes that I made. After years of hosting wine tasting parties, both through Cork Fizz and in my personal life with friends, I've learned a thing or two and I want to share them with you. So that is what this podcast is all about. Just a quick reminder, if you are not on my mailing list yet, what are you waiting for? I would love for you to join. When you do, you'll get a free shopping guide that has 15 of my favorite wines under $15. Head to corkandfizz.com, scroll down to the bottom, and there'll be a little section where you can join the mailing list. I send out a weekly newsletter filled with wine tips, recommendations, special offers, and so much more. Now, let's get back to the show. So starting off, we gotta have a plan. So we're gonna start by talking about number of attendees. How many people do you want to attend your at-home wine tasting party? You see, the thing is, an event with too many people can make it hard to stay focused on the wine. There is alcohol in wine, and the more you drink, the more, energetic, talkative, excited, loud things become. It can be hard to focus on the wine. Now, on the other hand, Having too few people runs the risk of not having enough wine to try. We're imagining in this scenario you want each person to bring their own bottle of wine. You could also supply the wine, so that would throw that out the window. So you can have a wine tasting party with as few people as you want. In my opinion, I think the optimal size of a wine tasting group should be anywhere between like 6 to 10 people. Could go up to 12. This way, each person can contribute one bottle of wine and it's not too overcrowded. Now, who do you invite, right? That's the next question. For my first wine tasting party, I honestly invited a total random combination of old neighbors, coworkers, and their partners. So got to meet a lot of new people that way. Some new friends we'd met at the dog park. And I think even like friends of friends through work or through, again, that dog park situation. So, like, it doesn't have to be people you've been friends with for years. I mean, this is a great way to actually start to get to know people because you have a thing to do in front of you. You get to talk about wine. It's a good way to start connecting. The important thing is that these people are willing to take the night at least a little seriously. Like, I think the only thing is like anybody who like says they don't like wine, it's probably not their thing, you know? Like you could invite them, but like that's not going to be very fun. Also, of course, make sure they're comfortable around alcohol. Let them know that the plan is it's a wine tasting party. And so that gives them a chance to decide if they do not want to come and be around wine. And again, that they like drinking wine and they're willing to kind of learn a little bit about it and not just drink it, you know, partying kind of style. Think back to college, right? Like we're going for a little bit of an elevated situation here. Okay, now we have our plan. You're thinking about who you want to invite. Now you need to find a date for this. Dear God, please, please do not host your tasting on a school night. We did this, and it was a terrible. I don't know what we thought. We we planned our first wine night. It was a Monday night, and I guess we thought, you know, wine's elevated. When I have wine, I don't get drunk. Like I don't drink that much, but you know, when each person brings a bottle, and when your whole group drinks all of the wine, that equals one bottle per person. Not that I recommend that. You can definitely have leftovers, okay? Again, learn from me. But we we definitely finished all the wine and we were so hungover the next day. It's actually a really funny story that night. My husband and I, we had to take the dog out for her like last little walk around the neighborhood to go to the bathroom. And as we left, my husband locked up the house and, you know, we were walking. I swear to you, we saw people having sex in their car, first of all. And again, we are both drunk as hell at this point. So we're like not totally sure what we saw, but we're pretty sure we saw people having sex in their car. Then on the way back, we went to get into the house and Cody's like, oh shit, I forgot the keys or I dropped the keys. And so we had to go back past that car and find the keys. Oh, it was quite the night. It makes for a good story, but learn from me. Just in case you go a little overboard, though I'm going to give you some tips for how to not go overboard. But just in case you do, save it for like a Friday or Saturday night. One of the easiest ways, I think, for finding a date amongst all these friends that you want to invite, just create a poll and have your friends vote on which day works for them, and then just choose the day that has the most amount of people that can make it. I use Facebook Messenger for this, or actually we have a Facebook group for our wine tasting club. There are a lot of other apps out there if your friends aren't into Facebook. I know it's kind of like a millennial and older thing, so I don't know. Okay, next up, we have our attendees, we have the date chosen. Now you need a theme. You want to be specific about the type of wine you are tasting. So, for example, you could focus on a certain grape like Pinot Noir, or you could pick wines from a specific region like Tuscany in Italy. Having a large variety of different types of wine is too much to keep up with. So if you just had everybody just bring a bottle, it might seem a little haphazard and wild, and it can make the decision difficult at the end as to what your favorite is. So if you come up with something that kind of guides people in a direction, it also kind of gives you a talking point. You don't have to be super elaborate though. Don't worry about going crazy. Here are some of my wine club's favorite themes that we've done in the past. One of them is called Washington versus the World. Now, we're in Washington, so we did that, but no matter where you are, you could do Canada versus the world. You could do Virginia versus the world, whatever you want. Okay, so the way this works is you basically take half the number of people. So let's say you have 8 people joining the wine tasting. 4 of you bring a Washington wine of a famous varietal. So, for example, I think we did a Washington Syrah, we had a Washington Sauvignon Blanc, a Washington Cabernet, and maybe a Washington Chardonnay. Let's say we did those 4. Then the other half is going to bring a version of that wine, so usually the same grapes, from a different region, and it could be anywhere in the world. We kind of went with the more traditional. So for the Washington Syrah, I think somebody brought a Northern Rhone Syrah, and I think we may have had one extra person, so they brought an Australian Shiraz. So there were 3 different Syrahs, but it was like the Washington one versus the other ones of the world. And like somebody else brought a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc to go against the Washington Sauvignon Blanc. Somebody brought like a French Bordeaux to go against the Washington Cabernet Sauvignon. You get the idea, right? So it's like half from the one region that you're like highlighting, and then the equivalent, but from a different region of the world for the other one. We've also done regional wine and food pairings, and this is where we each kind of chose a region of the world. So I think I chose Alsace in France, and you were to bring a bottle of wine from that region and a popular dish that could go with the food. So I think I did an Alsatian tart, which is like an onion cheese, like flatbread pizza kind of style with the wine. Great thing to do here. Go to your local wine shop and just ask them, hey, this bottle of wine, what is a good food pairing from this region? That is where I got mine from. I just asked the person at the shop. Another thing that we've done, pop the bubbly. Everybody just brought a different style of sparkling wine. We also did one towards the beginning. One of our early ones was storytelling wine, which really left the floor open for what you could bring, but you had to have a story behind the wine. It could be a personal story, or it could be a story about the winemaker or the winery itself. And this was a really cool way to learn a little bit more about the wine that you were tasting. If you want some more theme ideas, I actually have a DIY wine tasting club kit. It's just a digital download, comes with a bunch of things, but included in that is 20 different themes for these different at-home wine tastings. And you can download it. I think it's like $25 on my website. We'll include the link to that in the show notes. Okay, when you're choosing your theme, once you've chosen the theme, be sure to communicate it to the group and be clear about what everyone should bring, right? If it's the case where everyone is bringing a wine, make sure they know what style of wine. What is the price point? I think at the beginning did like $15 to $30. If you think your group can spend a little bit more, you could put it at $20 to $40. You could just say $50 and under. Just make sure to put up that high price point, put a limit, a maximum, so then everybody feels comfortable spending in a certain area. And then also let people know, should it be covered? You can always cover it with aluminum foil if you want to taste blind. I say that for the first few ones, you don't need to do that. I think it's actually fun to look at what the bottle is, but totally up to you. And then, of course, if you're supplying them, just let people know how they can pay you back, or just have them show up and, just let them know what the fun theme is. And then, of course, let people know if they need to bring food with the wine too. Okay, you've done all your planning. Now it's time to set the scene. This podcast is sponsored by Repour Wine Savers. Listen, I love wine, but that doesn't mean I want to drink a full bottle every night. You see, it's always a risk opening a bottle knowing I'll only have a glass or 2. But now I don't worry about that at all because I have Repour. These little contraptions will keep your open bottles of wine good for up to 3 months by removing oxygen from the bottle using fancy chemistry. And they're so easy to use. I simply open a bottle of wine, cork or screw cap, just like normal, and enjoy my glass or 2. Then, when I'm ready to call it a night, I rip the foil off my Repour Wine Saver and place it in the bottle in place of the cork or screw cap, and then stick the bottle in the fridge. Simple as that. Then, whenever I grab another glass from that bottle in the future, I just make sure to put the Repour back on as soon as I'm done pouring. It's that easy. Want to give Repour a try? Head to repour.com, REPOUR.com, and use code Cork and Fizz for 10% off your order. That's Repour, REPOUR.com, and use code Cork and Fizz. No spaces in that, and the and is spelt out. So it's CORKANDFICZ. Once you have Repour, you'll never have to worry about opening a bottle of wine just for one glass. I mean, heck, now you can try 2 or more wines at the same time and have your own at-home wine tasting. This podcast is sponsored by the Cork Crew Virtual Wine Club. Interested in trying new wines, but not sure where to start? Or maybe you've been listening to this podcast for a while and you love the idea of tasting wine live with me. If that's you, come join my Cork Crew Virtual Wine Club, and you'll get to sip wine with me twice a month while I help you find new favorite wines. The Cork Crew is not your ordinary wine club. This is a community of people who are passionate about exploring new flavors, learning about different wine styles, and having fun along the way. And the best part about this club, purchasing the wine is completely optional. Plus, all events are recorded, and you have access to the full library of recordings as a Cork Crew member, so you can always catch up if you can't make it live. Oh, and did I mention it's virtual, which means you get to do all of this from the comfort of your sofa in your PJs. No need to worry about driving in crappy traffic, finding a designated driver, or spending an arm and a leg on a taxi. Want to give it a try without the commitment? You're in luck. Right now, I'm offering a free class pass to anybody who wants to try out the Cork Crew Virtual Wine Tasting Club. With this pass, you'll be able to join a Cork Crew event of your choosing. No strings attached. I don't need your credit card. I don't need you to sign up for anything. You'll be my guest. Simply head to corkandfizz.com/free class pass to get your class pass and be one step closer to becoming a member of the best wine tasting club around, the Cork Crew. I can't wait to see you there. Now let's get back to the show. So first, you're going to want to gather all of your supplies. And here's what I would recommend. First of all, you need the wine. You could supply all of it or have everyone bring one bottle. Definitely need a wine opener, potentially two, so you don't have to pass it around everywhere, but definitely recommend a good wine opener. You need a wine glass per person. If possible, have them all look the same, but come on, if you, not everybody, I understand, has like 8 to 10 wine glasses at home that are just like ready to go. So you could also just have a total mix of them. My recommendation is that they are stemmed wine glasses, just because it makes it easier for tasting both white and red wines, and people don't have to worry about warming up the wine glass. And it's easier to see kind of how much they're pouring, because it's going to be important that they don't pour too much. Make sure you have water. I recommend having even just water pitchers on the table. I've noticed that encourages water drinking way more than just being like, go to the sink and grab some water. Having the pitchers out really just like encourages people. Have some napkins. I promise you there will be spills. Just be prepared for them. This is also a great time to use those cute little cocktail napkins that you see everywhere, where they have like a fun little wine saying or like a wine design. My in-laws always get these for me as a gift with like every holiday, and I love it because then I pull the napkins out for the wine tastings. I would also recommend that you print out some wine tasting guides. You're like, where do I get a wine tasting guide? I got you covered. You can head to the show notes. It is a free wine tasting guide download. You can download it and then print it out either at home if you're like me and an old millennial that still has a printer, or head to your local library or FedEx to download a copy for everybody. You're going to want a palate cleanser. So we already talked about water. Crackers are a good one to have. But hey, this is also a great time to show off those charcuterie board skills, right? Go crazy with it if you want to have some snacks and things out. That way, it's just a good way to have a little taste of food between each of the wines. I also recommend having some red Solo cups. They don't have to be red. They can be blue, whatever color you want. But these are great as a personal spittoon or dump bucket in case people don't want to drink all of their wine or they accidentally pour too much. This is one of my recommendations for avoiding the hangover. And honestly, spitting is a totally normal thing in the wine world. And where else to get comfortable with it than in your own home? This way, like, you can get comfortable spitting into that little red Solo cup. And then when you go out wine tasting, you can look fancy and be like, I know how to do this. I'm not worried about it. But this also, yeah, like I said, prevents the hangovers. And for those that have to drive home, they can still taste the wine without being unsafe. I also recommend having a way of writing down notes about the wine. Now, you could go super simple and just have a notepad or piece of paper and pen, or you could use some fun Cork and Fizz note sheets. I have made quite a few of them, and I have 3 of them included in that downloadable kit. One of them is my famous emoji wine note sheet. It's actually one that was inspired by a friend who would always like draw little things to describe the wine that she was drinking. I was like, you know what? We should do something with that. And so I created this like wine note sheet so you could write in each of the names of the wine. And then it's just this like big box of different emojis. And you just get to circle the ones that like give you the right vibes for the wine, right? Like there are some that are like different foods and aromas, but a lot of them are just faces. And it's like, is this wine like make you smile? Does it make you sleepy? Does it make you right? Like what is it about it? And like it's a very creative take on wine tasting notes. But I also have some more serious ones. And I think I have a third one in that downloadable kit. And I just can't remember which one it is. But like I said, there are some in there. And again, it's all a PDF thing that you can then print out and get a copy for everybody and make sure everybody has a pen or a pencil or a marker or whatever just to write something down on their wine. Okay, lastly now, that's all your supplies. Let's talk about setting the table up. So each space, so you want to make sure everybody has a spot to sit, of course. Each space should have a wine glass. If you're looking to compare different wines and be a little bit more in depth, you could give folks 2 to 3 wine glasses, but that would require you to have a lot of wine glasses. And unless you're like me and happen to have a crap ton of wine glasses, it's going to be a little hard to do. So you really only need one at each spot. You'll also want to provide each person with their own personal spittoon. Remember that red Solo cup. For a wine tasting, again, it's totally appropriate to spit wine in order to taste it without the effects of the alcohol. And then having it be like not a clear cup makes it like not gross, we don't want to look at that. You'll also want to have a wine note-taking sheet for each person. So if you get one from my kit, you can download those, print them out, and get one for everybody. Also have the wine tasting guide and a water glass at each spot. And if you wanted to go above and beyond, you could put down a white tablecloth. Now, nothing too fancy. I'd recommend actually a very cheap one because it is very likely it's going to spill. But I say white so that everybody can see the color of the wines really well. Along with that, have adequate lighting so folks can see their wines. I know like darker lighting is like very romantic, but you actually want it to be quite bright so that people can see the wines. And then, of course, like I said, set out the charcuterie boards. Go a little crazy. If you got a baker in the group, have them, bake some delicious bread. Like just have some fun with it. One thing to avoid, no candles or other scents other than the food. Those are going to distract from the wine. Also recommend not wearing perfume or anything super aromatic. We want the aroma to come from the wines. Okay, you've done the work. You did the planning. You set up the tasting. Now start the tasting. One of the biggest questions that I get is what order should we drink the wines in? My recommendation is to go lightest to heaviest. So typically that's going to go white to rosé to red. And then amongst the whites, the rosés, and the reds, order them by lowest alcohol to highest alcohol. That's going to help you the most. I do try to put like wines together. So if 2 people bring a Cabernet Sauvignon, put the 2 Cabernet Sauvignons together, even if another wine like fits in between them based off the alcohol percentage. Also depends on like if you're doing a certain theme. So if you were doing that like Washington versus the world, right, you're probably going to want to do the Washington version and then the world version, and then the Washington version and the world version, right? You're going to do them like every other. And then save the sweet wines for the end if you can. Now, for the wine tasting, if each person brought a wine, have them introduce their wine. Then pass the wine around the table and everyone pours themselves a glass. Remind people, small pours. You can always come back for more. The thing is that, if you think about it, a regular glass of wine at a restaurant is going to be about 5 to 6 ounces of wine. So if you just do these small 1 to 2 ounce pours in your glass for these tastings, but if you taste 8 to 10 of them, that's nearly 2 full glasses of wine, right? So just remind people that it's okay to do a small pour in this scenario. If you're not sure where to start when it comes to tasting the wine and how to lead this effort, check out the very first episode of this podcast where I walk you through my 4-step wine tasting process, and you can use my guide for reference. At the end, you can choose to vote for a winner. And again, it's a winner of the wine, not like the winning person. If you have 7+ wines, I always recommend giving everybody 2 votes because sometimes it can be hard to choose between 2. Give them 2 votes and then just run through the wines. Have everybody, just like hands up style and have somebody count how many there are. And if you make this a regular thing, the wine tasting parties, then the winner that gets chosen based off the highest number of votes gets to choose the next theme and potentially host the tasting at their place. All right, my last little tips here. Again, start small with your pours, all right? We talked about it already. A regular glass of wine in a restaurant, 5 to 6 ounces. You only want to be pouring yourself like 1 to 2 ounces of wine to start. You can always go back to it. Typically the way it works for us is during our wine tasting parties, we'll taste all of the wines, just like small amounts, and then we'll go back and taste some of our favorites to kind of figure out which ones we want to vote for. Be sure to eat. Either eat a small meal beforehand and or have plenty of food and snacks during the tasting, or even plan to have a big meal after all the drinking. If you're a group that loves doing potlucks, plan to do the wine tasting and then have a big meal afterwards, right? Also, encourage folks to shop for wine from a small wine shop and step a little outside of their comfort zone when they're buying their wine. This is your chance to try something a little crazy, a little new, because if you don't like it, right, someone else at the table probably does. And you have 7 other wines that you get to try, all for the price of just that one that you brought to the table. And then encourage folks to take notes throughout. You will forget the wines as you go if you don't write anything down. So try to jot something down about each one and potentially even rate them as you go so it's a lot easier at the end to remember. Now, if you're listening to all this and you're thinking, holy shit, that's a lot of work, Haley, you can let a professional run your tasting. At Cork and Fizz, I offer a variety of themed wine tasting experiences to choose from. My typical one involves tasting 3 wines and going in depth with each of these. But if you'd rather do it more style just like this, where everybody brings a bottle and we talk it through, I'm happy to lead you through that as well. Just pick something that interests you, grab your friends, and let me handle the rest. For the virtual wine tastings, I'll put a link in the show notes for you, and then also in-person ones here in the Seattle area. And I've already mentioned it a couple times, but if you want to host it, but you're like, I do not have all those things that you're talking about, I have a downloadable kit which has everything that makes it super easy to host your own wine tasting party at home. It includes everything from tips on how to start a wine club with friends, more in-depth instructions on how to host that tasting party, 20 detailed theme ideas, a wine tasting guide, wine tasting placemats if you choose to do a style where you taste like 3 to 4 wines at a time, and 3 different wine note-taking sheets, including that fun little emoji one. I think it's just $25, and there's a link for it in my show notes. All right, what do you think? You ready to host your own at-home wine tasting party? If you know a wine lover in your life that would enjoy this podcast and wants to know how to host their own wine tasting party, please share this with them. You can send them a link, or you could even just take a screenshot right now and post this episode on your social media. Just be sure to tag me at Cork and Fizz. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. I release new episodes every Wednesday. In next week's episode, I'll be interviewing the owner of a local wine shop here in the Seattle area, technically Kirkland for all those who are actually here, but you're not in Seattle, just think Seattle. The wine shop is called The Grape Choice. Her name is Desiree Ballard, and she has such an interesting story to tell. She started working at The Grape Choice as a bartender and immediately knew that she'd own it one day. Like, how freaking cool is that? It took some time, but I think nearly like 20-ish years later, she'll correct me on the podcast. She purchased the shop. She's doing things differently and trying to stay ahead of the curve. You don't want to miss this conversation. Don't forget, if you'd like to taste wine live with me and belong to a community of amazing fellow wine lovers, come join my Cork crew. Head to corkandfizz.com/free class pass to come check out a tasting for free. Cheers!